Hey everybody, what is going on? I am Maximus Rex and this is Big Baby Reviews. Today is Rob Liefeld Day. It is Thursday, so we are looking at the next issue in his 90s run of X-Force. This is issue 6, cover dated January 1991. Last issue's review of X-Force number 5, I talked about my hypothesis that in and around this time, what I considered, for me at least, for myself, peak Liefeld, as far as his artwork goes, in my love of it, I posit that he was drawing those first maybe 1 or 2 issues of Youngblood in around the same time as he was drawing issues 5, 6, 7, whatever of X-Force up until he stopped those, right? So the artwork level and the kind of lines he's putting down, I feel, are consistent between like what I'm looking at here and Youngblood number 1. So it definitely feels like they were drawn in around the same time. Liefeld always has a knack for cool looking action poses and dynamic covers, and this is a good example of that, I think. I like the fact that stuff is cropped out of the cover, and that makes it even, more kind of cramped and tight on the action here. I think Shatterstar's pose here is really good. The anatomy overall, maybe a bit of McFarlane leg going on, but done pretty well. And something you don't see a lot of on this cover in most, or people will argue you don't see a lot of. I've seen some Rob Liefeld feet. They're not as elusive as, whatever cryptozoology animal you're into, I don't know, Bigfoot. We'll have some time to talk about Bigfoot tomorrow's review with Tom McFarlane. But anyways, getting ahead of myself. So great cover, great action going on here. Continuing the storyline, so we know that Sauron was in, do you say Sauron? Sauron was in last issue and is here now, obviously, to wreak havoc for X-Force. So, and featuring the cable guides, which I will, when we get to, we'll talk about a little bit about that and what I think about it. So let's open her up and have a look inside, see what's going on. Now, last issue, I pointed out lots of situations where I thought Liefeld might have been assisted. I didn't find, I have a few doubts on some stuff in this comic, but I think overall it was drawn by him. I could be wrong, but a lot of stuff in here is definitely very Liefeld-esque. Whatever you want to call it. I look at this head here, maybe Murat Michaels, drew this background throne part, because to me it looks like some brigade stuff. But the gist of it is definitely Liefeld on this page. Love the use of negative space on this splash page, probably for deadline reasons, but it works very well graphically and design-wise, so not going to fault him for that. That's what it's like when you're working on a monthly schedule. You try to find shortcuts to, make your work at least simpler and easier and maybe a little less time consuming, or as little time consuming as possible, if that makes sense. So we get the headshots of all the kind of major players right now in the X universe in around this time, right? So some of the stuff that's going on in X-Force, Uncanny X-Men, right, is what we're seeing here. This is what was going on with Jim Lee's X-Men with Magneto. So we're in that, super hot period right before Image Comics, right? White hot. All these artists are super popular. And will even form Image, right? And you know that story hopefully by now. If you don't, well, they go off to kind of a gamble for sure, and it pays off, and then most of them become millionaires. Not all of them, but I think most of them. Some great shots of Strife here. I like these kind of slightly Kirby-esque kind of lines he's using for the armor here. Very 90s, of course, but I like it. Using some of that Dale Keown screen tone all of a sudden, right? I've told you about, Liefeld's knack for looking at other artists and lifting little things from them, which is okay. We all do that, right? But it's like with Liefeld, it's a little more obvious, and you can kind of pick out and see where he kind of discovers stuff. There's later issues of Youngblood, I think I've talked about maybe in one of my past reviews, where a werewolf looks a lot like the werewolf in Pit. So it's a little more obvious, when you just lift a texture or something from someone else, that's all right. The use of screen tones, right? That's right here. I mean, then there's some pages where I'm like, oh, this almost to me looks like, Eric Larson kind of inking job in a strange way. I could be wrong, but that looks very Liefeld. All of this, the staging of it, right? The Liefeld team shot that he does more and more of. There's this, like, there's that issue, the first or second issue of Youngblood. It's either in the cards or whatever, but there's a shot, maybe it's an ad of Youngblood, right? And they're all just kind of standing there. Like, this is pretty much the same shot, right? It's a Liefeld staple that he uses a lot, which is cool. It just introduces a lot of characters quickly in one big image. It's not a bad idea. Got the 90s verticals. always puzzled at some of the female anatomy when Liefeld draws women, but I mean, this is clearly, she's got kind of a bodybuilder build, right? She's like an athlete, clearly. She's built like a cat, so I guess that would make sense. On this page, this is where I question a little bit in this issue. Maybe it's Liefeld, but I feel like there's a bit of Murat Michaels or Dan Fraga in there. Again, I could be wrong. This is an odd shot for, you know, a kid back in the day, and you're like, what's going on? I guess they're a couple. They're both naked in the same bath, right? When I was a kid. Steam is a little weird there. A weird way to represent it. Just something odd about that panel overall. How it was inked and stuff, the contour of the bath, like it's very simple. This page here has some weird, like, okay, so there's wood flooring, that's fine, but there's what, wood paneling on the walls as well? They're in some chalet somewhere. This is crazy. It's just a bunch of like little circles. It's again, it's a screen tone. You can get that in Procreate today, right? But like to have it back then and cut that out and stuff, that must have taken a while. It's no fun. Assuming assistants did it. Yeah, it's like this sequence here. There's a few Murat Michael isms. Yeah, what is going on? I don't know if I just noticed this, but like that's not all drawn and stuff. That's got to be some sort of cutout and screen tone that they put in there. Some leafy kind of background. Interesting. Like around Farrell and stuff. Just noticed it. The odd Liefeld profile. I think the eyes are just set too low or something. There's weirdness going on there. The mouth is square as well, so that's odd. Always pretty good with Farrell though. Like it seems to work here, right? I guess he was kind of going for this here, but it kind of lost it here. Her mouth seems like smaller and like almost like it's more vertical than horizontal if you look at her from the front. I don't get too weird about it, but you know what I mean. I like this, just this small little shot of Farrell here. I think it's really cool. Then she gets angry. The walking away shot, the Liefeld walking away shot. So here we've got basically Warpath and Shatterstar training, you know, out in the woods again. A lot of action seems to happen out in the woods, and a lot of training seems to happen out in the woods. The level of hatching on this face here is just insanity, but it's still kind of cool. Who's drawing the trees here? Listen, if it's Liefeld, good on you, man. Someone's doing the backgrounds here. Even if it is outside and it's quicker, it's organic than, you know, drawing buildings and technology and humanity and stuff. Whoever's doing the backgrounds here, if it is Liefeld or one of his assistants, is doing a pretty good job. I'm just going to kind of leaf through this because originally when I bought this comic as a kid, I don't remember my version of the comic having this in the center here. And I do find it kind of annoying because what ends up happening is it cuts right into the middle of a 2-page splash. I guess you can kind of see it now, even though one side will probably be shaded because of the light. I can open that up for you so you can see that, right? So just kind of sucks. Pretty cool shot of Shatterstar there, giving a huge kick. And it gets kind of co-opted by this ad by, you know, I guess Nintendo at this point. I think I may have mentioned it earlier though. Nintendo are really coming into their money, Konami and stuff, because they're putting ads in the middle of this comic, and this paper here is much better quality than the newsprint here, right? It's a glossy kind of magazine, almost more like the cover. I would even wonder if it's thicker than the cover. Let me grab one sheet. I think it might actually be as thick or thicker than the cover. Yeah. But back then, I guess, you know, advertising video games and comic books made sense. I don't think that happens quite so much today. I don't know. I don't buy most mainstream comics, so I'll review one for Wildcard Sunday this week. But yeah, generally not something I entertain. I never really paid attention to this, but this sound effect here, Karak, seems kind of out of place in a Rob Liefeld comic. It almost feels like the old 60s Batman TV show here, Bim Bam Poof Paff Piff and all that stuff. Or like we're getting here, Wham Slam Jam. Dear God, pretty cheesy. Yeah, and just some more kind of cool shots of characters, right? Brooding and posing and stuff. That's what's going on here. And all of a sudden, members of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants just show up, right? In the middle of the woods here. So some Rob Liefeld plot lines. And somehow they've gotten their hand around Siren's neck so she can't actually yell and use her powers, right? Well, no, she can talk here. So that's kind of odd. I never really noticed that bit there. Why wouldn't she? Just kind of scream in their direction, I guess. She can't do that. Kind of funny that this is basically the same face, right? No change there. I'm sure I've talked about it. I've always liked Rob's rendition of the Blob. Probably one of the coolest looking versions of the Blob is owned by Liefeld, 100%. I'll give him that for sure. He made the Blob cool, to me anyways. And the Toad too, I think. It's pretty cool when Rob Liefeld draws him. And that's basically the kind of cliffhanger they're trying to establish here. Stay tuned next issue for the continuation of this fight. Sauron, does he have eyebrows? Like double layers of eyebrows? So weird. I never noticed that. Is that something? Like from Marvel canon? Or did Rob Liefeld just add... And why 2 sets of eyebrows? Very strange. Bad coloring job here on Toad's hands, all of a sudden just disappearing. Do you think they were roots or something? There you go. So not much as far as story in this issue, but some cool art, and that I think is mostly Rob Liefeld's. And again, there's a kinship, if I can describe it that way, between the art here and the early issues of Youngblood. Once again, throwing out my theory that those early Youngblood issues 1 and 2 were drawn in around the same time as this issue, prior issues, and maybe a few issues into the future of X-Force. So we get to the cable guides, right? And what this is basically a quick little Rob Liefeld sketch of each character, then a description of that character and that character's character and psychology and stuff, right? Written by Cable. I mean, the real reason for these is because, the characters are so poorly developed, and this will continue with Youngblood and Image Comics generally, right? That you get most of, it's been mentioned and said in the comics community that you would get most of your information about the Rob Liefeld comics in magazines or in the back of trading cards and stuff, right? Not in the actual comic. So Marvel, I guess, Marvel editorial could kind of see that in X-Force, so they threw these in to give kids a bit of a chance to figure out who these characters are exactly and, what they're all about, instead of them all being just so kind of mysterious and unknown. So Cannonball, it kind of just, and I think there's 2 editions of this. There's this one, and I think another time it pops up again. So just bringing you up to speed is what I was trying to say on all the other characters, Sunspot. So there you have it, the Cable guides, helping you understand the plot when Rob Liefeld doesn't do enough in the actual comic. Love the art, though. This is a great issue for the art, definitely. There you have it. That was my review of X-Force number 6. Those of you who are subscribed and still watching, thank you so much for being so supportive. I really appreciate you still being there. Those of you who are watching but are not subscribed, please do so. It's really quick for you, and it really helps out the channel, helps get us out there to more people who are like-minded and are into the same videos and material about comic books that you and I are. So thank you for watching, everybody. Everybody out there, have a great day. King Comics presents Big Baby, Volume 1, Issues 1 to 13, 204 pages of story and art. King Comics also presents Star Crasher one-shot, 32 pages, cosmic sci-fi surrealist adventure. You can find these fine comics at kingcomics.ca, at MaximusRex13 on Instagram, or on Facebook, MaxRex or Big Baby. Like!